Welcome to our onboarding webinar. This is Michelle Buren. And I just have to start out by saying thank you for riding this roller coaster with us as we've been going through this process. It's been a little bit stressful, and now all of a sudden it feels really real. So we are super excited to start and get you all up and running as well. So today is really meant to be an overview. A lot of this information you probably have heard somewhat, but we will go into a little bit more detail and provide some clarity on scope of work, timeline, and we really encourage you, if you have questions, to feel free to type them into the chat box. We also are hoping that you can type in the name of your campus and who's in the room with you if you have others in the room. If you could type that into the box, that would be great. We just want to make sure between the two webinars that we've communicated with all of the campuses. All right, thank you. So it looks like we have Cal Poly, Dominguez Hills, and Fresno. All right, and SAC. All right, perfect. Well, like we said, happy Friday. And I do have to jokingly apologize. We realized you cannot edit your chat box, and Naomi typed in the stuff, and afterwards we realized, wow, we had a few typos. So we are all coffee drinkers in this room, and we didn't have it yet. So there you go. So anyways, today the goals are really to introduce you to CHC staff, because we know you've got great relationships with CFO program managers, but we have some new people that you'll be working with for this project specifically. We want to provide an overview of the CalFresh Healthy Living program, and when I say that, I mean SNAP-Ed, because we've referred to it before as SNAP-Ed, but we're trying to transition to the new branding, and we'll be referring it to CalFresh Healthy Living. We hope. You will still hear us say SNAP-Ed occasionally. They are the same thing. We'll also be giving you some fiscal and contract updates and a bit of a plan for scope of work activities. We're going to introduce some of the, look at up there, it says SNAP-Ed resources, CalFresh Healthy Living resources, and we want to discuss scheduling a kickoff meeting with all of you. So first of all, I wanted to introduce staff to you. I think a lot of you already know who Emily is, because she's on our CalFresh Outreach project, and also she was at the CFO Summit and Chebna, and I think you all know her probably quite well, but she is implementing both CFO and CalFresh Healthy Living on our campus. So she's going to kind of be a mentor to all of us to understand the college culture and how we can really like synergize and collaborate on campus. And then you'll hear her voice today as well as in future webinars down the road, so that we're being as cohesive as we can in linking that CalFresh Outreach and CalFresh Healthy Living. The other person, though, that you have not probably met is Jennifer Murphy, and she goes by Jen. She's a registered dietitian, and she is slotted to be the program manager that will work with Fresno, Northridge, and Dominguez Hills. Amy Gonzalez is also a registered dietitian. She is slotted to work with San Luis Obispo, Sacramento, and East Bay. And then many of you already know Melissa Stearns, because she has done some of your trainings in the past, and she's on the CFO project, and she will continue to work with San Bernardino and Long Beach. And I do want to point out, I know we all look really young on this slide, but we actually represent about 50 years of SNAP-Ed experience, because we've had that funding for a pretty significant amount of time. And so what we bring to the table is the expertise on how to really implement this CalFresh Healthy Living project. But I want you to be reassured that we're working closely with our CalFresh Outreach team as well, as they're the experts really on the campuses and will help us liaison kind of what your campus culture is and where there's opportunities. So we will be doing that. And then on the next slide, so my name, I'm sorry I didn't say, is Michelle Buren, and I'll be the project director on this project. Stephanie Bianco, you know, all of you do over the years, and she will primarily be working on the evaluation piece of this project. And then your fiscal leads will remain the same. So Naomi, Kathleen, and Amy will continue to be your fiscal contacts for both contracts. We do want to point out these are two different contracts, and so there's going to be a learning curve in this beginning part on, you know, who do we go to for what. I love that they already have, our fiscal team has good relationships with you, so if you have questions immediately, you can start there because you've got relationships, and then they'll pitch them to us as we can respond. So an overview of what CalFresh Healthy Living is. I wanted to show you this because of a couple reasons, but one is because of the branding. So I know you're all very familiar with CalFresh Food, which is your CalFresh Outreach project. And we do get questions sometimes because the branding looks very similar. So this is a separate branch with the CalFresh Healthy Living, and really we're looking at the education piece. So coupling the food access with now how do you prepare your food and make it healthy. And really what we realize is a lot of students really need a little bit of help with learning how to prepare food and how to deal with food. So the overall goal of CalFresh Healthy Living is to support healthy, active, and nourished lifestyles by teaching Californians about good nutrition and how to stretch their food dollars, while also building partnerships and communities to make the healthy choice the easy choice. And I do want to point out where we have our experience with CalFresh Healthy Living is really working at the county level, working with local health departments, and working in the community. And what's really unique about the campuses is you're almost your own little micro community. So we're typically trying to address where people learn, where they live, where they work, and where they play. College campuses, the beauty of a college campus is you have all of those settings in one location. So we're really excited to pilot this, and the state is really excited to also hear our feedback and really understand what CalFresh Healthy Living will look like on a college campus. So on that note, I will also point out we have a couple breaks on here to answer questions. So after Naomi does this fiscal contract update, we'll have a little opportunity to respond to some questions if needed.
Yeah, so this is Naomi, and I just have a few updates to give you, and also feel free to type questions into the chat box throughout the whole thing if you have anything that comes up. We're happy to take a break and address them whenever you have them. So probably a lot of you are wondering when you're going to get your subcontract. So for your subcontract agreements, we will be sending those out by the end of the day today. So these emails will come from either myself or Kathleen or Amy Reeson. And so they will have your draft subcontract agreement attached. We don't have our fully executed contract yet, so we can't fully execute your subcontract, but we're hoping you can do a final review of those draft subcontracts so that when we do get our fully executed contract from CDPH, we can quickly get your subcontracts turned around, and so they're ready to go as soon as possible. I know many of you have already done a review of the prior version of the contract, and in a previous email, we provided you some updates of some of those high-level changes, so dates and funder and scope of work numbers, and so all of those changes have been incorporated, as well as a few of you had also requested some specific changes to the contract language. So in these updated drafts, we also tried to address any of those questions or comments that you had put into those versions. So hopefully they're just about ready to go. So we're hoping this won't be that long of a review for you, but those will be coming your way by the end of the day today. Our contract should be to our contracts office here at Chico State to sign probably any day now. We're really excited to get it and can't wait till it's here. So it's still moving along. We've gotten some updates on it. We're just waiting for it to get to our office so that they can sign. If you have any questions about that, again, feel free to reach out to us, but those will be coming your way soon for review. The other kind of topic that we've been hearing from a few of you is that you are getting ready to hire and have positions that you want to post for, which is awesome. We're great that you are already moving in that direction, especially because of this condensed time frame that we have for this first year. Some of you have asked for position descriptions for project coordinators or student staff, things like that. And we have a lot of project descriptions or position descriptions that kind of reflect this project. So if that would be helpful for you, please let us know, because we're more than happy to share those, especially if it would help expedite your process of getting a position posted if you're looking to hire for this project. And then, as Michelle was mentioning a few moments ago, as a reminder, this will be a separate contract from CFO. So you will have your CalFresh Outreach contract and you will have your SNAP Ed contract. They are different contracts with different budgets and different scopes of work, but they are very much related to each other. And so Emily will get into that in a few minutes of how they complement each other. But as a reminder, they are separate contracts. And so you will need a new project number set up in order to spend money on this project. So we recommend, if you haven't yet, just connecting with your post-award analyst and seeing if there's anything you can do to get ready for that, so that come April 1st, you can be ready to hit the ground running, just like we are.
That's what we're telling ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we are putting it out to the universe that the contract is going to be here ASAP.
Yes. And so thank you for letting us know, Jessica and Dorothy. We have that noted down, and we will follow up with some position descriptions for you.
I do also want to point out that when they send you the subcontracts, you're also going to be introduced to the program manager that is slotted to work with your school. So then they'll be able to follow up with you directly and, you know, figure out next steps from there. But it will be an introductory email to your program manager as well. Does anybody have any questions?
Do you have a question?
Emily,
I
something
do.
to
I'm
say.
in the room and I have a question. Naomi, on the last, yesterday's webinar, we had a chance to confirm the timeline with our group. Could we confirm the contract timeline, the start date, and the end date? And just so everyone's really clear, I know that was a question that we were able to answer in the chat box, and it was really helpful to me. And I'm wondering if this group would benefit from just that timeline confirmation.
Yes. So as a reminder, this funding comes from USDA, so it follows the federal fiscal year. But this year one is all wonky because it's condensed into 6 months. So this will be an 18-month contract. It will start on April 1st of this year. The first year will go from April 1st to September 30th of 2020, and then year two will go from October 1st of 2020 to September 30th of 2021.
Perfect. Thank you, Naomi. And I was feeling a little worried because that doesn't necessarily overlay or complement our academic year very well. And so if that is something that you're all thinking about or is kind of in your brain as well, please know that we're sensitive to that. We have lots of ideas about summer programming and what we can do to get really quickly up and running because myself, you know, we're working on our campus as well, and we're so happy to share what our plans are in the first 6 months and then in the following year.
Thank you for adding that. Yes.
Perfect. Well, it does not look like we have any questions at this point, but again, if you have any along the way, feel free to chat them in there and we can unmute you also and you know, have a dialogue about this as well. But on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Emily.
Thanks, Michelle. So as you can see, this slide is very wordy for me and really describes our project goal. And I will leave that for you all to read on your own. But what I wanted to do was just take this opportunity to share personally the goals and the excitement that I have around layering on this project with our existing access work. So those of us who have been working on CalFresh outreach or food access or food insecurity on campuses for a while really know that our students are ready now. They may have not been ready a few years ago, but now we have done so much work, made so much progress with food access. You know, I'm interfacing with students every day. They're like, okay, this is gorgeous stuff in the pantry, but I don't know what to do with it at home. Or I don't have a source of heat at home for cooking. I only have a microwave. You know, a lot of these conversations and questions with our students come up naturally, and that's the reason why I'm so excited that we can now offer the next layer to food access, which is education. You know, our students are ready. They really desire these hands-on, lifelong learning opportunities. And, you know, at the end of the day, our students are really in need of education around what to do with their food and how to make kind of those lifelong healthy choices. So yeah, that's why I'm really excited about it. And I will turn it back to Michelle.
All right.
To get into it.
So this is a refresher because I feel like we looked at the scope of work how many years ago when we first started doing this. And so I want to just share out what some of the terms are that you're going to see is that we're going to be talking about direct education. We'll give you a definition of what CalFresh Healthy Living means by direct education. We'll be looking at indirect education, policy, system, and environmental strategies, and partnerships and collaboration. And we'll provide some clarity for you on what those things mean. And then we also will be giving you a little bit more clarity on what kinds of tools we're going to be using for the education. And then on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Amy, and she's going to give you some information about our single session and series-based classes.
Good morning. I'm excited to meet you all at some point in person, but it's nice to at least meet you virtually this morning. Yes, as Michelle mentioned, I just want to talk a little bit about what direct education means to the folks at the CalFresh Healthy Living branch at the state. So we have two different things here. We have single session and series-based, but for both of those, the state wants you to be really actively engaged with participants for direct ed. So it's basically some kind of instructor-led lesson. The goal is to have at least 20 participants per class, but that's a goal. At least 20 minutes per class is not a goal. That is a state requirement. Again, so to be counted as direct ed, needs to be instructor-led, at least 20 minutes long. And then the other part of it is it needs to be using some kind of approved lesson or approved curriculum. We have chosen some from the state's list that we think will work best with the college population. But having said that, this is a pilot project, as you're all aware, so the state doesn't have anything specific for the college population. So we're really kind of excited to use what we have, but also really tailor it to the college population needs. As Michelle mentioned during our intros, you know, myself, Jen Murphy, and Melissa, and Emily as well, have a lot of experience implementing SNAP-Ed, and so we're really good at being really creative and doing what kind of we want and what our participants want, so doing it within the CalFresh Healthy Living guidelines. So I don't want anyone to kind of be too worried about those lessons that we need to use. There are topics like meal planning, shopping on a budget, label reading, things that college students, what we hear, are really interested in learning about. So there's those single session classes that you'll be doing during this first kind of year one, April 1st through the end of September. And then after October, we'll be doing some series-based classes on your campus. And again, we'll be using a different kind of curriculum, but another state-approved curriculum from that one, from Leah's Pantry, called Food Smarts. And so this one will be a series of classes, as little as 3 classes count, or you could do as much as 6 if you'd like. The state does want you to have the same participants in each class, and there are pre and post surveys that are collected to help with evaluation. I did mention, or I forgot to mention, that there is also some post surveys with those single session classes. And then again, because this is a state program, there is some data participant cards that are required. They're very simple, they're non-invasive, they're anonymous. And we hope to have all of that information be able to be collected electronically. We're kind of working on some of those methods within our internal crew to see if we can get like a QR code or something, an app on the phone, something to make it really easy and accessible for everyone.
I just wanted to point out that one change that we had from the very beginning was we were originally, when we had the longer timeline, going to be implementing series-based classes in the first year. We modified that. So series-based classes will not start until the second year. That way, it gives you an opportunity to really just kind of get going with the single session classes. And I want to respond. Do only students qualify as participants? What do we do about part-time faculty that may be CalFresh eligible, staff, et cetera?
That's a great question. I feel like we should maybe bring that back to the state and ask what their feedback would be on that. That's a great question. I know that the intent was for college students to be the main target, but if there's other staff on campus that are in fact CalFresh eligible,
yeah.
It seems like that would be okay, but that's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up, and we will follow up with the state and get back to you on that one.
Okay, and I see, Jessica,
Yeah,
you've had
great.
the same questions come up. So that
a great question.
is something that we'll address with CDPH and make sure. Events, cooking demos.
Oh. Yeah, and so I'll respond to the question that just came up for Eleanor. So she was mentioning, I was thinking the general public events or cooking demos where we can't control the population, even if we target students specifically. And I can address that. That happens a lot with CalFresh Healthy Living, and that's fine. As long as you're targeting the specific student population, you're right, we can't control who else comes, and the state is totally fine with that. Thank you for that clarification. That's a great question. I forgot to mention, and I do just want to mention that both the single session and the series-based classes, we want them, and they're designed to be really interactive. So it's not like a lecture type of series where someone is just up there kind of droning on and on. They really are designed to be interactive and involving cooking and having students really have an opportunity to get their hands on some of those activities. Okay, and then again, the state has their own definitions here for indirect education. So basically, indirect education is anything that's not kind of instructor-led. When you're doing tabling events, if you're hosting a booth at a health fair, displaying resources or information, it could even be social media outreach or any kind of media outreach. There are 2 specific days of action that were included in this contract. I think this was maybe in one of the most recent updates as well. So the state has these 2 days, Rethink Your Drink Day coming up in May, and then Healthy Snack Day in September. They have really nice kits all put together that they will mail you materials and resources. They have webinars to watch. I do want to just acknowledge that May is right around the corner, and I want to put everyone's mind at ease. That is the state, their dream is to have everyone do this down the same day, but they also acknowledge that that's not realistic for everyone. So we can certainly come up with a plan for your campus if May 13th doesn't work for you to do a Rethink Your Drink Day. I don't want anyone to worry about that. And I know that Emily has something to add right here, so go ahead, Em.
Perfect. Thank you, Amy. So I just wanted to hop in and interject here and let you all know that are working already on the CalFresh outreach stuff that we're already doing this. We're really already doing this. We're already tabling on campus. We're already posting on our social media, and we may even be doing some of these themed events or more targeted days of action. They just look differently. I'll give you a really concrete example. Last Thursday, we all celebrated CalFresh Outreach Day. We had tabling, we were focused on pre-screening and applications. However, we had an opportunity to fold in a Harvest of the Month tasting, and that just simply looked like we had orange slices and kiwi slices on our table, and we kind of marketed as an immunity shot. You know, all of us kind of have that on our radar right now and trying to keep ourselves healthy, and so we thought that that was a nice layer. I didn't have Harvest of the Month posters. I wasn't saying, hey everyone, this is indirect education. I did nothing but layer on a simple tasting to our already existing event. So I want you to be thinking about the work you're already doing and how can we simply pull some of these pieces, some of these suggestions from our indirect education onto that. And if you want more ideas, that's really what I love to do, is get creative and think how we can not work any harder than we already are, but just interject some things into that. So let me know what you think.
Before we move on to the next slide, I just want to address that we absolutely recognize that April and May, and even for some of you into June, is a hectic time of the year as you're trying to wrap up your academic year. So that is absolutely why Amy mentioned before that we can work with you on figuring out if that doesn't work for you, or maybe that's a great week for you because it is finals. But if it's not, we'll work with you, and don't be concerned about that. Absolutely understand that the school year, you know, your workload fluctuates over the course of the quarter or semester. And so don't worry, we'll work with you individually on that.
And that's really what we're here for. That's our expertise, is really, like Naomi said, just being creative and really working around what you guys already have going on.
Awesome. And I would love to respond to Carla. That is exactly the point here. You've already got a pop-up going. How could you add a Rethink Your Drink component to that? Could you highlight some fruit items that you could add to water to make water more interesting, to choose over a sugar-sweetened beverage or something like that? So Carla, you're exactly on the right track, and that's what we're really excited to see people do, is take what you already have and layer on a little bit more, extend that nutrition education. We may already be doing that, but I'm just excited to have like legitimate money and like legitimate support to do it. So we may have been doing it for a while, just on different budgets or scrappy money or whatever, but now it's all legitimate and we can really, really extend our work. So awesome, Carla, that sounds super exciting.
And this is Michelle. I just want to point out it's totally fine to do that day the week before. That would not be a problem at all. So that's a great suggestion. All right, so the next piece that we refer to in the scope of work is, I think, super exciting, and it's PSE. You're going to hear that term used often. That stands for Policy, Systems, and Environmental Change. And I feel this is very separate from that direct education and indirect education piece. It's really built on looking at where you have momentum on your campus to make some changes and really create a culture that makes the healthy choice the easy choice. So I will read to you what they term, and when I say they, I mean the California Department of Public Health, the definition they use for PSE interventions are that they shape policies, practices, and environments to support and improve nutrition education, physical activity habits, and obesity prevention efforts. Unlike direct ed programs, which generally target individuals and groups and have a beginning and an end, PSEs have the potential to reach a large number of people and continue over time. So this is where you have some flexibility on your campus to really be responsive to where there's some momentum happening on your campus already. So some examples might be access to physical activity. I know on our campus here at Chico State, they're piloting a bike path to go through campus because we've never actually been able to ride bikes on our campus. So when we went to Davis, we were like, everybody's riding bikes everywhere. So we had a dream to kind of bring that to life. But that may be one thing. We may be looking at behavioral economics and really looking at where we place products in some of our retail environments. We might look at increasing access to and utilization of farmers markets. So in our county, our farmers markets have a market match program. And so we encourage our students that receive CalFresh to utilize their CalFresh at the local farmers markets. Then that stretches their dollar. So dollar for dollar match up to 20, I think, each week. We might also look at access to healthy foods. So that might be looking at your dining services and what types of foods are being served. If there's any campus incentives. Something that's not on this slide, it might be also looking at faculty integration or building like internship programs that really have some teeth for long-term sustainability of these projects. I know that the state was actually particularly interested in that piece, is the internship piece, and we can provide quite a bit of guidance on that platform as well. If you have campus gardens, and if you have wellness policies. And Aiden, I see your question. PSEs will be evaluated and assessed. So the first step will be that we're going to do kind of a campus-wide assessment to really figure out who your partners are, what your environments and policies and systems already look like. Based on that, we're hoping that will guide some discussions on each of your campuses to hone in on a specific PSE strategy. And then based on what that strategy is, we're working with CDPH to figure out which assessment we would want to do, but there will be a pre and a post assessment that would happen. The pre will happen before the end of this first year, before any PSE work starts, and then the post will happen at the tail end of the second year. And this part is actually really exciting for us, and I think is going to help us paint a better picture of what the climate of our college campuses looks like for the state. So the other piece that we are looking at on this, and it really does support all of the direct ed, indirect, and the PSE work, is looking at your partnerships and collaborations. And I know with your CFO work, you report on partnerships, and what I've heard is that sometimes there's a little bit of confusion, and I think it's because you see yourselves as working with colleagues. But really, we're looking at anybody that's not receiving SNAP-Ed funding as a partnering entity. So if you're working with your dining hall, then that could be considered a partnership. If you're working with your EOP office, that could be considered a partnership. And what we're trying to do is recognize that some of these may be at a zero, thinking I need to start some partnerships with these people. What's nice is that this funding can support your time to create these partnerships and any meetings that you may have on your own campuses. Ideally, we want to work towards collective impact and collaboration. So you're moving from that scale of networking all the way to collaboration. And this piece will also be assessed in the pre that we do in April or May, and then again at the end of the year too.
Okay, so this is Naomi again, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about evaluation and reporting. We've touched on pieces of it throughout these different sections of the scope of work, but we just wanted to kind of reiterate kind of what the overall plan is for evaluation and reporting. So we did find out that we had to go through the state's institutional review board for the direct education portion of this project. We have never done that before. We've always gone through our campus, and so it was a new and interesting experience for us. That is getting submitted today. So we have that application pretty much tidied up and ready to go. We know that some of you need that information as well for either to sign off on your contract or potentially to have it submitted to your campus's IRB as well. Our campus here at Chico State said it's very likely that they're going to be willing to accept the state's approval. So that's something that you'll want to work with your campus on to determine if it seems like you might need to submit your own to get approval from your campus, or if they might also accept the state's IRB approval. If you are anticipating that you're going to need to do your own IRB approval, please let us know as soon as possible, because that way we can make sure to get the information to you soon and also work with you on getting your application submitted and approved on your own campus. But either way, whether or not you think you'll need it or not, if you want all of that right now, let us know. We're more than happy to share. So like I said, the reason that we had to do that was for these single sessions and these series-based classes, because we are going to be having participants do post surveys for the single session classes and then also pre and post surveys for the series-based classes. For the single session classes, it's a very, very simple prescribed that came along with the curriculum. I think it's like 4 questions for each lesson, so it's very simple and straightforward. But again, since we're doing an intervention and we're doing surveys with humans, we're having to submit that to their IRB. For the pre and post survey, the same thing that's getting submitted with our IRB application. We're actually more excited about these surveys though, and to see this data. We think it'll give us a little more valuable information than just those very limited post survey questions. And so these will be for the Leah's Pantry Food Smarts curriculum. And so we are excited because we can't wait to see what that looks like pre to post for students. We have not seen any data like that for this population. And Leah's Pantry, who developed that curriculum, is also very excited because they also have not tested this curriculum specifically with that college student population. So that we're excited to see. It is getting submitted to the IRB, and again, we're working on getting that approved. The other piece that we'll need to be collecting from people who are participating in direct education are the data participation cards, which Amy mentioned before. It's very simple, just demographic information, not identified to the person, but just trying to show who are you reaching within those classes. So we have to collect those. And then, like Michelle was mentioning a moment ago, we are also developing assessments for PSE and partnership tracking. So those are the big pieces in terms of evaluation. We also are doing activity tracking forms that we'll need you to complete, which is just to collect the process data. So for things like your Harvest of the Month tastings, we don't need any information on participants, but we will need information on what you're doing. So the activity tracking form helps you just track what you are doing so that we can report back to the state saying that we're reaching our scope of work. And then Stephanie, thank you for that comment. Yes, so we absolutely can make amendments to the state IRB application if necessary, if we need to add other tools, change anything. This was unexpected for us. It came to us at the last minute that the state said, oh, you need to do IRB. Oh, you need to go through our IRB. And so they had some kind of unexpected deadlines on our end that we weren't quite ready for. So we submitted it as best as possible. Well, today we're submitting it. But we absolutely want input and want to collaborate with you all too if there are things that we want to update or change. We can't get rid of questions on surveys, but we do have the potential to add some surveys or some questions if needed or if it's relevant. Stephanie, that's a great question. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure if anyone else is using the approved IRB application from the state or if everyone's going to need their own. I'm really only familiar with our campus. Our campus's IRB, and I've been in communication with them because we weren't really sure even how to navigate the state's IRB process. And so we've been working very closely with them. And that's why I say, they said that it's very likely that they're going to just be willing to accept the state's IRB approval. But for everybody else, that's going to be up to everybody's individual campuses if they're going to want to accept that or if they're going to require their own application. It's a great question, though.
And thank you, Stephanie, for that comment. The state IRB is much more rigorous than any that we've seen for any of the CSU campuses. And it's true, we thought, oh, IRB application, not a big deal. And then it was like a 10-page proposal. So,
and we had to reach out to, I don't know how many people on our campus to get information for it. So
if anything, we can share that with you because it's more information than you probably would ever need for your own internal campus procedures. So what we want to look at now is next steps, because I feel like it's going to be April, like tomorrow, and we need to be ready to move forward. So we're looking at next steps, and like I said, you're going to be receiving an email from your fiscal lead, and then from there they will introduce you to your program lead. I also want you to know that we'll be working really closely with CFO internally before we have some conversations with all of you to just learn as much as we can about their relationships with you and what they've seen over the years and really what your campus culture looks like. So what we're hoping, and this is in an ideal world, we will get to your campus sometime in April. And so in the email that you're going to receive today, you'll receive a doodle poll. And in that, we're hoping that you can respond as quickly as possible, but we're looking at potential dates to travel down to your or I say down, they're all below us. So that will travel down to your campus and schedule a kickoff meeting to really go through some of those nuts and bolts. So if you could respond to that as quickly as possible, that would be amazing. And then the other piece is in your original proposals, we had built in some budget for you all to travel to the LIA Forum, which is a conference that's put on, it was put on in February, I keep doing that. And since our contract is starting late, that's not going to happen, but they did encourage us to still build in budget for travel so that we can have a convening to bring these 9 campuses together to really reflect on where we've been with this first year, what our needs are for the second year, and really map out how we're going to make things happen.
The other thing that we're thinking about doing at that convening is actually bringing the folks from Leah's Pantry to come and do a specific training for this Food Smarts curriculum. So we're hoping that will work out too, so that they can come and directly train all of us.
Thank you for adding that. The other piece that we're doing is, and we've been encouraged by the state to look through all of the training opportunities that they already have for SNAP-Ed approved resources on PSE, Direct Ed, Indirect, and the Days of Action. And so we will be sharing those links with you because I know some of you are getting, student staff up and running and you want to get them going with some pre-training. We'll get those posted for you so that you can do those at a convenient time for you. And then lastly, we'll be scheduling some one-on-one calls with you. So our program managers will reach out to you all as campuses and have some one-on-one calls to really figure out what your next needs are.
And Riva, I see you have a question. Will we be sharing all of the training outlines for the single session and series classes? Amy, I'm hoping maybe you can help address that question.
Yes, absolutely, Riva. Like Michelle mentioned, CalFresh Healthy Living has a lot of materials already online, training for those single session and series-based classes. And as Naomi mentioned, Leah's Pantry does do an in-person training. So we're hoping to either bring them to you or bring you to them or do some kind of version of an in-person training also. But absolutely, we'll definitely be sharing all those materials as widely as we can.
And hi, Riva, this is Emily. And please know that, really where our expertise comes in is looking at what the state offers for training. Look at what they offer as suggestions, but then translating that into what we know best. And those are what our students need and what's relevant to our students. So that's where I really feel our expertise and our excitement comes, is that in between. Here's what the state suggests, here's their guidelines, how can we tweak them to best serve our students? That's where we are really excited to get into it and hear feedback from you and let you know what we're experiencing and move on from there. So, yeah.
Thank you for adding that. And one thing that the state is very specific about is making sure that we are only using SNAP-Ed approved curriculum. And so our team went through and picked out some lessons from that have 5 different options. And we do need to maintain that curriculum fidelity. So making sure that we're still, teaching the content and teaching the objectives. But what Emily is saying is there's opportunity to tie in all different types of recipes and make them engaging and interactive and meet the students where they're at. It might be able to complement some of the food that's, seasonally in your pantry, and that's where we can get really creative. But they are very specific about making sure that we're using SNAP-Ed approved resources. And I will say that the 5 lessons that we have selected for single session courses, we would like to stick with those 5 for this first year. And then when we have a convening and we have some time to reflect, if there's needs to expand to other SNAP-Ed approved resources, then we can have a conversation then.
So Riva, thank you for that next comment. They're hoping to do their first series over the summer. Michelle, can you give a little input on that?
I will, and then I'll invite Amy to chime in as well.
Okay.
But so technically we did not write in series-based until the second year. So that work wouldn't necessarily qualify under series-based. And unfortunately, Leah's Pantry Food Smarts can only be taught as a series, but all of the single session classes could be coupled together and you could use the same population, no problem. You would just count them as single session classes for this first year.
Exactly. This is Amy. I just want to add on to what Michelle's saying. And look, we will send you these 5 lessons that we keep talking about for these single series. They're, according to the state, they have certain lessons that are allowed to be used as single and then certain lessons that have to be used in a series. So the 5 single sessions, those can also be used as a series. So you can absolutely do a series over the summer, Riva, and just report it as 5 different single sessions or 3 different single sessions or whatever it is. Just because, like Michelle mentioned, in our scope of work, we don't have the series built in, but you can do it and we can support it as a single session. And again, like Emily mentioned, that's where really our expertise comes in, to having whatever you want to do, we will make it happen. We will make it happen for you and count it as we want to count it under CalFresh Healthy Living.
Thank you both for that. I'm going to try to address this next comment question. I'm not sure if I'm going to hit the mark on it. So if I'm not getting it, please, please, please let me know. Give me a little more clarification. So I actually have cooking demos going on weekly this month. So you'd like to realign them with the new contract if we can get it. So as a reminder, this contract has an April 1st start date. So nothing that's happening before April can be counted on this contract. We are hoping to get you those contracts today, but they'll be draft subcontracts, as I mentioned before. We can't sign off on them until we have our fully executed contract from the state. And so we're still waiting on that. We're doing our best to get it to you as soon as possible. I know you're all waiting on it.
And I'm not send you links to resources now if you wanted.
That
would be totally fine. So if you want us to send you links to these actual lessons, let us know either in the chat box or respond to Naomi's email and we can send you links. I know, again, because the contract hasn't totally started, we are also, like Emily mentioned, we really want to do some kind of groundwork and look at these lessons really closely and then give you really great suggestions based on Emily's experience about how they could be tailored best to the college population. So we have not done that part yet. We can, like I said, send you links to like the straight, if you will, CalFresh Healthy Living curriculum, but we have not made our little tailors yet for the college population.
Yeah, and thank you for that clarification. And so we absolutely, like Amy saying, we are getting our website actually created right now. So we're in the process of doing that. So I think we hope to have that up next week even. So we'll be able to start posting all of those links for you all, and we'll share that then website address with you so that you can go ahead and start accessing all of that so that you'll know everything that has been approved to use and what we're hoping to implement, so that if you want to get a head start, we'll have that all available for you. We do not have the expectation that you are spending this next month getting ready. We absolutely understand that you don't have a contract in place and your contract doesn't start until April 1st. So it is not an expectation on our end at all that you're prepping for April 1st. We're excited to see though that you all are ready to get moving on this though. So anyone who wants it will make that available.
That's perfect. I have one question. So when you mentioned that you were doing the food demonstrations on a weekly basis, I'm curious if for us internally, if that would actually be a single session class or a harvest of the month tabling. So depending on how you implement those activities will dictate how we track that.
Yes, that's what I was just going to add. That I think that would be a great thing to count, maybe as harvest of the month or as some kind of other indirect, maybe activity or indirect promotion.
Yeah, if you're in a class, if you're in a space with a captive audience for at least 20 minutes, then it would be considered a single session class.
If it's approved curriculum.
If it's,
that's the hiccup. So again, that's where Emily and I can look at those OC5 and say, what are you doing as your cooking demo? Is there something we can tie in? Because again, there's lessons on label reading. So maybe you do a 5, again, we'll get creative with that later on individual.
So those are the types of conversations that then you can have individually with your program manager to, on those one-on-one calls to really map that piece out. So, and I'm reading your comment. We host both weekly, a passive Harvest of the Month style display tasting with a 20-minute tour class held during the weekly farmers.
Oh, we're so excited to work with you, Eleanor! Yay!
Yeah, that's exciting. So we can talk about that and how to best track that
Mhm.
for our process data, really.
Yes.
Okay. Let me see.
Oh, great.
Okay.
That's perfect.
Yeah, you're good.
You are right on the right track there.
So just in case you're not in front of your screen and didn't see what we're responding to, she said she's just trying to align these existing activities so interns are ready to run them accordingly to the new content guidelines.
You
And
get a
that's-
gold star,
Yes.
Eleanor. Gold star.
Good job. So we knew that today we didn't need probably the whole hour and a half, but we wanted to make sure we had enough time for open dialogue. So if any of you would have any other questions or would like to have a conversation, you can chat or you can type in the chat box and we can unmute you if you have any questions or recommendations or anything that you would like to say.
So we'll give people a few minutes if they have some questions, but that is all that we have prepared for today. Again, we just want to thank you for joining us and allowing us to give you some of these updates. And again, you'll be getting that email coming to you very soon from your fiscal analyst with your contract as well as a few other notes, so be watching for that.
The dates for travel, that would be super helpful if you could take a look at the doodle poll and let us know some dates that work for you. We're trying to collaborate and coordinate travel for campuses that are somewhat near each other. And I don't see any other, okay. You would like to apply for IRB on campus, and may I also have the IRB template? Absolutely. So we'll make sure that we include that in the email.
Yeah, Dorothy, I'll go ahead and just include that in yours. So anyone who has already asked for it, I know we have a few people who have already requested it. I will make sure we go ahead and just include that application and all of the attachments in the contract email that we send you today, because that is ready to go. Well, we'll probably have it ready to go in about an hour. So.
All right. Well, I don't see any other questions coming through. Thank you, everybody, for carving this time out on a Friday morning. And you will be hearing from us soon. And I hope you all have a fabulous weekend.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.